Hi everyone, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, I really appreciate it. Thank you. So here we are, November 4th, key election day, and my suspicion is that Trump is at a key turning point in his political life because there is a very good chance that he may find himself staring at Democratic victories across the board such that they could literally run the table on him. And the key points would be the New York mayor election, which is looking like a Mamdani win, the New Jersey election, which has tightened admittedly, but will probably go to Mickey Sherrill, the Virginia governor's election, which again is looking like a Democratic win, and then we have California's Proposition 50 to counter the shameless rigging by Texas of House seats and the pushback by Gavin Newsom in California, which a while back was fairly tight. Now it's not looking so tight. It's looking like a Democratic victory, meaning they will approve the counterpunch to the Texas initiative. And finally, there is a Supreme Court retention election in Pennsylvania, which is also fairly tight, but odds are pretty good that will also stay Democratic. And so what this is going to do is remind Trump that just as when he was elected, elections matter, of course, to the great detriment of the rest of us, elections continue to matter. And to that, you have to add further problems that are nearby, such as the Supreme Court is about to consider the question of tariffs. And I find it interesting and very troubling for him that you see the Wall Street Journal publishing op-eds telling the Supreme Court to not give him these powers because of how damaging it is. And they're indeed correct. And even if the boss is Rupert Murdoch, a very unsavory, ultra-conservative, oligarchic character, nevertheless, you take what you can get. And so that would be another major setback, to which we add the government shutdown. And apparently it's looking more and more like it's not Democrats that will have to compromise, but it'll be Republicans because the numbers are against them. Maybe not in huge, huge numbers, like is the case in a whole host of issues, but on this one, they're losing by somewhere in high digits, and so they need to make a move sooner than later. And this is well reflected in his astrology because, yes, he is getting some benefit from the Saturn-Jupiter trine, especially by Jupiter being on his Venus. And I think the bulk of this has been the fact that he was traveling around the world, getting crowns and all kinds of compliments, which of course are mostly given by state leaders who realize we have a total tool, an imbecile running our country, someone who needs, constant praise. Otherwise, he can't find his way, he can't put his pants on, and so this is what they do. But it's nothing more than Pyrrhic victories, nothing substantive. In the meantime, these other bigger issues are constantly in play. And yes, the Jupiter's there, yes, the Saturn trines. There's a sense in which he's not going to feel the true effect of all this until later in the year, and especially next year. That's totally true. But nevertheless, in the immediacy, as we are transiting through this in early November, we also have the fact that for him, all the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Eris, all four are in very troublesome spots, especially in this case now, the Uranus getting close to re-entering Taurus in retrograde motion, which puts it in a square to Trump's ascendant. As we go into the winter, it'll get worse because then it'll square Mars tightly and then it'll go the other way and square again. But in the immediacy, it's already there. And this, for him, will probably represent a form of shock, even though it shouldn't be shocking that there would be so much pushback around this time. It's certainly there to remind him. And then to this, you would also add the immediacy of the fast-moving transits, especially the Mars. Mars just today finally left Scorpio and moved into Sagittarius, but it's still in the very, very early part of Sagittarius, which means it's still in a direct square to his ascendant. That's one of those fast-moving or relatively fast-moving aspects that signals trouble in terms of getting a result that would be to his liking tonight. Instead, it's the anger and the rage and the belligerence of Mars that is going to get triggered, which of course is easily triggered in this guy, so nothing new there, but certainly in the temporal sense, it's right there tonight. And we are also moving toward the full moon, which in exactitude is tomorrow, but we're already there. The moon, in fact, moon entered Taurus less than an hour ago, and it's moving toward the 13th degree where it's going to be exact. That's tomorrow, but already tonight's election and into tomorrow, the thing happening, the results have that full moon feeling, and you look for what it's doing in someone's chart. And in his case, it cuts across the 410 axis, which is the home, career, but especially career in this case, your reputation, how you're doing, how the world sees you. And because that full moon triggers the Pluto in Leo rising in squares, suggests to me that he is not going to like it. And so, bottom line, my feeling is the Democratic Party is going to be doing very well tonight. And as I often remind people, take what you can get, see it as momentum moving forward in the right direction, and realize that although this guy now, of course, is going to begin to try even harder to see if he can do something to fix, rig, at least improve his chances in 2026 in the midterms. Of course he's going to try. But remember that he is navigating through a very, very rich media environment. People complain a lot about the media, but there's a ton of media out there. There are a ton of cell phones, a ton of things being investigated and reported. It is really tricky territory for the way this guy operates. And so when I put that together with the angles that I see in 2026 for him in the astrological plane, he's not going to be able to do it. And that's what we have to bank on. But of course, I'll end by saying that all of this does depend on us. You know, the fact that the cycles are there doesn't mean that we shouldn't vote. But I will end by saying too that I strongly suspect we're going to get a ton of voting tonight.